Everybody, this is Perch. I think one of the things that it's important for everyone to keep in mind, the customers, the readers, fans, and creators, everybody, is that number one, tastes change over time. And then number two, nobody has a perfect record. I think that it's there becomes this pressure on both ends of the spectrum. And I've talked to enough creators to note that there is this feeling that if they write something that's received well, that any criticism of work after that is dire. It's like the world is coming undone. You hit a slump, you never recover from it. And this is not unique to comics, by the way. You see this in music, you see this in movies. There's this idea that if the follow up is not absolutely perfect, then they've peaked. The career is over. It's done. It's like they were a one hit wonder. Kind of all of these different phrases. I always like the phrase, by the way, one hit wonder when it's applied to like I remember some people were applying it to Aerosmith with the follow up to the Pump album, and it's like, well, number one, that's a just ludicrous statement. They had done a lot of work before Pump, and so the idea of one hit wonder, it's like there's lots of hits. What are you even talking about? But anyway, there is that kind of dynamic in comics where if there's a negative review, it's the end of your career. And so you see a lot of creators lash out, get very, very defensive and aggressive with even kind of passive reviews. And actually, by the way, as other people pointed out, and they're 100% accurate, a negative review like "this is just terrible" is somehow not as bad as "this is boring." If and this, by the way, this is not a cheat sheet for how to get under the skin of creators, but please don't take it that way. But if you go up to creator like, yeah, your work was just kind of, I don't know, unoriginal, boring, derivative, those are the daggers to the heart, much more than it sucked. It's weird how that works. But anyway, I'll use this as illustration just to kind of point it out. Mark Waid has had a very long comics career. By anyone's standards, he's been in comics for quite a while. And if you take Mark Waid Kingdom Come, or if you take what a lot of people, I think, don't remember as much as Kingdom Come, is that once upon a time, Mark Waid was put on Captain America in the 90s, and it was considered good. Like, the critical acclaim was strong, people liked it, they felt it was going in the right direction, and then they interrupted it by basically giving it off to Rob Liefeld for the Heroes Reborn, the whole storyline. And part of the anger or outrage, or I don't know, outrage is the wrong word, but part of the pushback that customers gave was they were very happy with the Mark Waid Captain America. They really liked it, and the idea that it was interrupted, even though Rob Liefeld at the time was considered one of the the biggest names in comics. Him and Jim Lee taking over a bunch of Marvel Comics, returning. I mean, that was a huge hype moment. And definitely the comic sold more when it came out the gate. But there was still this, what the hell? We were liking Mark Waid's run. People really enjoyed it. And then when the comic came back from Liefeld, they gave it back to Waid, but it wasn't the same at that point. It still had a lot of good popular acclaim, but that interruption hurt it. It actually derailed somewhat the momentum that had started to be built up in that title. Fast forward to today, or last 5 years or so, Mark Waid was writing the Avengers and the Champions for this brief period coming out of, I think it was coming out of Civil War 2, right? Or no, it's coming out of Secret Wars. What am I saying? It's coming out of Secret Wars. And this idea, if you read that, you would be forgiven if you assumed it was from a different writer, because it didn't have the same. I mean, like it was different. And by my estimation, I really liked Mark Waid on Captain America in the 90s. I thought he was doing a terrific job, and it was he got the character, and I thought it was really good. And then 20 years later, Mark Waid doing the Avengers, and this scene that I've posted a few times recently of Jane Foster Thor kissing Sam Wilson Captain America, and going, "You taste like a Captain America," and Sam Wilson going kind of stunned, "You taste like a goddess." and it's just like gross. It's it's like this is a terrible panel. I mean, it's kind of meant to be funny-ish, I guess, but yikes! Like it wasn't good. And on top of that, they had a storyline going where Captain America was dating Misty Knight, or at least had a relationship with her. And so not only was it a clunky dialogue and weird kind of relationship that was getting set up, it wasn't written well. It wasn't taking into account continuity, something that Mark Waid himself has kind of railed about, of like, it's not right when writers don't pay attention to what's going on in the solo books and what other people are doing. And yet, he did it himself in this title. He created this weird little thing, never acknowledged the Misty Knight relationship, but just did it on his own. And this is an example of a case where I it's the same person. It's Mark Waid, and it went from I think writing some of the best comics. I mean, there was a period of time where I think you could have made the case that Mark Waid was the strongest writer in comics. Kingdom Come, Captain America. He did he did a lot of different things, and he was at the top of his game. He was definitely one of those like top 10 writers in the business. He had a lot of competition. I mean, you got Grant Morrison, you got probably Neil Gaiman during some of that. You got Mark Millar, you have Alan Moore still throwing stuff around. So you have a lot of competition in that space, but still, he was considered one of the best. And today, I think you'd have a hard time making that case. His titles haven't hit. His Doctor Strange didn't really hit. His Captain America that he came back to recently didn't really hit. The Avengers run is considered, fairly forgettable, I think, by Avengers standards. And it's just interesting. The point here is that people can change. I mean, it's not done in one. People don't have a comic they write that's just perfect and it's great and everything is no problem, and then it stays that way. They can have good runs, they can have bad runs, and for all we know, Mark Waid could be put on. Who knows? Some comic could be put on the Flash in a year or two and could have one of the best runs of his career. Could easily happen, and nothing is set in stone. And that's one reason why I think, to the fans, to the customers, we have to take these things as they come. We have to pick up the book. You certainly can see a little bit of a trajectory of a writer. They evolve over time, and there are trends that happen. I think Brian Michael Bendis of 2005 is much different than Brian Michael Bendis of 2020 in terms of the tropes and kind of his style of writing that he uses. He's not the same individual. And I mean, from my perspective, and different people have different opinions, he's not as good as he used to be. He leans too much into the same kind of things. But once again, he could be put on a title and to put in the best work of his career. So life changes, and I think the key here is that you don't have a static timeline for quality of work, and also everyone is capable of clunky writing. Everyone, including the people you like the best, and this goes for art too. Not everyone. Everyone has something that they've done that is not going to be good, and probably something that you're going to like. I brought up John Romita Jr. He comes up a lot in the Friday streams and chats, and I definitely love a lot of Romita Jr.'s work. I think his Spider-Man was great, and I think his X-Men, particularly the runs when he was doing it in the 180 kind of that era of X-Men, I think were amazing. I think he was at the top of his game. Many people have never seen that side of him. They know him only from kind of his recent work with Bendis, maybe on Avengers and then on Superman and some of this kind of stuff. And it's a dramatically different John Romita Jr. I own original art from him. I would hold him up with Mark Silvestri and a handful of others, especially in that era of X-Men from kind of 140 to 220. as some of the great stuff. I mean, you had Ramita, you had Barry Windsor Smith, you had Mark Silvestri in there, you had some killer artists just doing the work of their careers, and I think he stands right up there, shoulder to shoulder with a lot of them. And like I said, I own some of his art. I love it. Um, that said, I can pick up some of his recent Superman issues and say I think this is awful. Some of the weird leg design. I mean, just some very clunky work. And I think the lesson there is that we have to be able to say, I like this, I don't like this. And if we don't like something, we try and make it about the work. Try and make it about what it is we're holding in our hands, and not this big, all-encompassing, this particular writer, this artist is trash and has always been trash, and it's the worst thing in the entire world. We have to be able to separate that. It will make you saner as a collector, reader. It's as a creator, I think hopefully it makes it easier for them to digest negative feedback, because when it's not personal, it hopefully helps a little bit. I think it's unhealthy that creators react so strongly when somebody says something's not great that they do, and they're really over the top, intense reactions to what I would call very mild criticism. And that's it's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for comics. It doesn't none of it makes any sense. So I would love to break out of that and have that change, because I guarantee you, including the creators I talk, I do videos with Sean Murphy and with Jeffrey Thorne and other Kari Andrews, and I guarantee you they produce something I don't like, but they're nice people and they produce stuff I really love. And so that's just it's some perspective. And by the way, this seems super freaking obvious. Like, it feels weird just saying this out loud, because I mean everybody knows this already, right? I don't know. Maybe it's easy to forget those things when we live in a character limited world of social media. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, let me know your thoughts below, and in particular, let me know creators who you've got work that you've absolutely loved and absolutely hated. Again, for me, I John Romita Jr. is a great example. Love that guy. I have original art hanging up in my studio of his work that I think just awesome, like right next to some Art Adams pieces and some Mark Silvestri pieces, and just I think a great artist. Um, Simultaneously, I cringe when I see some of that Superman work, and yet at the same time, as a third perspective, I've met him in real life many times. He's one of the nicest guys you've ever meet. I just think he's a absolutely stand-up great guy, and I hear that consistently across people. So, as far as a person, I'm going to go with what I've seen in real life. He's a great guy in terms of the work. I'm going to say I like this stuff. I don't like that stuff. Things work out. Let me know some creators like that have fit that bill for you in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hey, and thanks for listening.